The Columbus Metropolitan Club was founded in 1976 by 13 women leaders who wanted to be included in the community conversation. I am Sally Bloomfield, and I was one of those 13 women. Having been left out of men's clubs that focused on community issues, it was a priority for us to make the club 100% inclusive.
Today, CMC presents public policy forums every Wednesday at lunch with average attendance of more than 200 people. I'm Tony Bell, and I frequently attend forums, which are open to everyone and present relevant, current, and newsworthy topics. I'm grateful that CMC is nonpartisan and presents many perspectives on every topic.
I'm Jane Scott, President and CEO of the Columbus Metropolitan Club. CMC is open to everyone. We invite you to explore the personal and professional benefits awaiting you at the Metropolitan Club. Welcome to CMC.
Welcome to CMC.
Welcome to CMC.
Welcome to CMC.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. I'm Doug Buchanan, Editor-in-Chief of Columbus Business First and a member of the Columbus Metropolitan Club's Board of Trustees. Today's forum is supported by the Columbus Dispatch and sponsored by the United Way of Central Ohio. Today's forum partner is the Columbus Council on World Affairs, and our live stream is presented by the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch. Let's thank all of our sponsors for today's forum. Okay, on to today's program. Columbus will soon welcome 350 Afghan refugees, just part of 60,000 coming to the United States. At today's forum, Afghans settling in Ohio will hear from leaders working to help these refugees create new homes in Columbus. To introduce our speakers, I am inviting Shane Dalton, Chief Diversity and Inclusion Officer with today's sponsor, the United Way of Central Ohio, to the podium. Shane, welcome.
Thank you, Doug. So first, I want to thank the Columbus Metropolitan Club for bringing to bear issues, trends, and conversations that matter here in our community. United Way is sponsoring today's forum as a way to remind us that we are a community of diverse and talented people. And I want to lift up the reputation that we have right here in the city of Columbus for being a welcoming city. And some people may ask, welcoming for who? And my response to that is welcoming for everyone. The most recent announcement of Afghan settlement is a local reflection of who we are and who we are becoming. Diversity is our advantage because we're not all the same. Equity is making sure everyone is treated fairly and has access to opportunity. And inclusion is providing a sense of belonging. So today is our opportunity to learn more about the efforts to welcome and settle Afghan families. So let's welcome today's speakers. First, we have Norgul Dada, President of the Hidayah Institute and Senior Engineer at PGM Interconnection. Second, we have Nicole Ghazi, Executive Director of Muslim Family Services of Ohio. Third, we have Nadia Kasvin, Founder and Director of Us Together Incorporated. And finally, we have Angela Plummer, Executive Director of Community Refugee and Immigration Services, and our host, Yilan Chung, Immigration Reporter for the Columbus Dispatch. You can learn more about today's speakers in your forum flyer. Yilan, we look forward to today's conversation. The podium is yours.
Hi everyone, my name is Yilan. It's so great to see such an amazing panel we have here today to discuss this very important and timely issue. And thank you everyone for being here. And today we have some folks who recently arrived from Afghanistan, as well as their supporters who helped make that happen. So I want to give a special welcome to them. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with the U.S. military withdrawal that completed at the end of August, which marked the end of the 20-year-long war in Afghanistan. And we heard reports from Afghan families and people involved in the process just how chaotic the situation in Kabul was. And we can say that similarly chaotic was the process of trying to figure out how to take care of the Afghan families who were able to escape to the United States. Over the past few months, the State Department and its local partners have been scrambling to come up with a resettlement plan. And 2 weeks ago, and they often had to adjust their course of actions in order to respond to the ever-changing situation on the ground. In early September, the State Department announced which cities and states that the first group of 37,000 Afghan evacuees were going to live in. And in Ohio, we're getting 855 Afghan evacuees. Here in Columbus, our two resettlement agencies, CRIS and us together, are slated to resettle 345 Afghans. So my first question is for Nadia and Angie. In the past fiscal year, due to the low national refugee cap, you only had to resettle about 200 refugees in total. But this year, on top of the 345 Afghan evacuees, you're also resettling about 1,600 refugees from all over the country, all over the world. Are you prepared to welcome such a large number of Afghan families and other refugee families? Do you think Columbus' current city infrastructure and resettlement infrastructure are equipped to deal with this increase in numbers?
Well, we've been preparing for that for months. And we hope that we would see new arrivals coming gradually to our city since June, July. That didn't happen, but we've started seeing people coming in September and October, and we already know so many families are placed with our organizations to come before the end of the year. So we've been preparing, but you're never prepared for such a rapid arrivals. We definitely had consultations with all the stakeholders here in Central Ohio, working with schools, with the county, with the City of Columbus, with City Council, reaching out to landlords, and there are definitely some challenges. And one of the challenges is housing. We already live in a very hot housing market. It's very difficult to find a new apartment. And we deal with challenging of trying to talk landlords into renting apartment to people who don't have a job yet, who don't have a social security card yet, who can't demonstrate income. Rental history, background check, though refugees are the most screened and vetted immigrants that come to our country. And one of the important things that happened recently is that we partnered with the Columbus City Council, and I think it was just announced yesterday. Councilmember Remy sponsored legislature creating the first ever Afghan neighbors fund, rental fund, so that our both organizations are partnering with the City of Columbus and Columbus City Council to have a fund put aside so that we can have assurances for landlords. And the default rate for our clients is so low, we hope never use that, but just in case to have confidence among landlords so that we can do that. Angie?
Yes, I agree with everything that Nadia said. The accelerated pace of arrivals is definitely a challenge because we have certain standards. We don't want this to be a mill. We want it to be welcoming and to provide quality services. To give you some context, pre-Trump administration, we resettled in the neighborhood of 900 people for a fiscal year. Then that dwindled. Last fiscal year, because of COVID and because we hadn't rebuilt yet, for FY21, we had 109 people. half of them came in the month of September. So the ramping up started in September, even prior to the Afghan crisis emerging. And so now we've been asked to commit to serve Afghan evacuees, and we've committed to 250. Again, this will be a very accelerated pace. They're trying to move people off of the military bases very quickly, and we want them to be off the military bases, but we want to be able to do a good job and welcome them. But the critical piece has been housing, and so this new fund that City Council is helping with is meant as a last resort, but to literally open doors to us with landlords so that we can find homes for people.
Thank you very much. And yeah, the housing challenge, I want to discuss a little more later. But right now, can you break it down to our audience? Exactly what kind of services are you offering the Afghan families? What kind of benefits they're entitled to during the 3 months long resettlement process?
Well, we've been very relieved that those Afghans that come with humanitarian parole status now have access to the same benefits as refugees. And so we provide the same services to them during the first 90 days. And they have access to public benefits, to have kind of this a hand up, not a hand down, so that people can get on their feet and start rebuilding their lives. We meet them at the airport, we secure the housing, we furnish the housing, make sure that there is a food in the refrigerator, and then start working with them, connecting them to community, to services, getting kids to school, applying for benefits, providing cultural orientation, and in-depth case management. And definitely something that we are very much aware that people come with trauma, with very recent trauma, and we need to acknowledge that, and our services have to be trauma-informed. People are still in that trauma right now. They didn't have time to process that.
I would just add that all evacuees receive a one-time pass-through of $1,225 per person, one time. And so that's their startup money, so it's not very much. And we spend that on their behalf towards rent. So it's critical that we have, this is a public-private partnership, and there are extraordinary community members and volunteers and faith-based groups who contribute to these efforts, and we really couldn't do it without a full, broad, community-based support.
Thank you for that, and that leads to my next question for Nicole. Federally funded resettlement program only lasts for 3 months, but these are people who escape war and are starting their new lives in a completely different country and will have further needs. And I know that your organization helps do casework for immigrants, refugees, and other residents with a variety of issues, including food, housing, language, and you also help them tackle harder issues like mental health challenges and domestic and family violence. So can you tell us a little bit, what types of longer-term challenge do you expect some of the Afghan families are going to face when they try to adjust to their life in Columbus that might be beyond the scope of what the resettlement agencies are able to do?
Sure. So our services kind of come in. I kind of describe us as sort of either the bench team or the safety net when refugees come in. So when that initial pass-through money is gone and we still need a rent payment, that's where my office may come in. We distribute within the Central Ohio area. We're one of the largest distributors of the Muslim community zakat funds. And so we do a lot of due diligence. We are ready to pitch in because sometimes 3 months, 90 days is not enough to find a good job. And when the bottom falls out, we're also there. Basically, we are able to provide some additional financial supports. We're able to do food support. What we try to define ourselves is we do not want to step into that case management in the first 90 days. Anybody who's familiar with systems here will know that if somebody comes to me and says, I don't have my my food stamps, my benefits aren't coming through, can you take me down to Job and Family Services? If I go ahead and put in another application, it bogs down the system. So we try to maintain really good communication. We find out when did you arrive, who's your caseworker. We try to have that open line of communication to make sure, and also reassure them that sometimes it is just a waiting game. We can provide emergency food supplies, and we are doing so already. We will deliver, and we do that throughout the city, and that is some of our normal services. And I also say that I am very honored. I sit in a very privileged seat that no matter, I knew the founders of the organization I represent here today. It was founded in 1993 by 3 Muslim women. I am not one of the founders, but they are all friends of mine. I can tell you unequivocally that I have seen refugees, I have seen births, I have seen deaths. I have cried at their funerals, and I have held their new babies. I have seen generations now welcome their grandchildren, and it is something that gives back to me beyond whatever it is we give to them. I always tell them that you are home now. Wherever you come from, you will always miss home. Everybody, I'm a transplant to Columbus, everybody misses home. But you are home now, and my office is open to you all the time. So we are basically that safety net 2 years down the line, 4 years down the line. We've had families that have survived horrific traumas outside of the U.S. and also have a horrific trauma maybe happen to them here, that we are able to provide that safety net and that reach. And not all of our clients are Muslim. That is not a requirement to benefit from our services and our case management. And we have always been open to helping. A number of the caseworkers from Us Together and Chris can tell you that we will take referrals from any of their clients, regardless of where they may hail from or what their religious preference may or may not be. So we look to partner in certain ways, but then we have a very, very long-standing relationship. We do citizenship classes, we do basic immigration paperwork for free, we do ESL classes, we have a women's empowerment program that before COVID hit was really doing some phenomenal work with some trauma-informed care. That's just really critical. We do homework help because online schooling really absolutely decimated refugee families. They were just not able to do remote learning. So we opened up, I say, for the past 18 months, we haven't been closed a day. I don't know how, but we've been able to make it work because our families need that in-person connection. And thankfully, we've been able to provide that safely. And we look at sort of those long-term needs. When somebody loses a job, it's not so easy to go back to their original caseworker, but they can come to me for job applications and workforce development skills a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And now I want to talk a little more about people who are still in Afghanistan, because only a small portion of people who want to leave were able to leave. And I want to turn to you, Norgo. I know you came to the country yourself as a refugee, and now you're leading a couple of organizations to help people who are still in Afghanistan. And I know that you still have loved ones in Afghanistan who want to leave. So could you please share with us a little bit what your situations are like now that Taliban is in control? Are they in any source of danger? And is there a way for them to come join you here in the U.S.?
So yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a very difficult question. Currently the situation in Afghanistan, it's kind of gotten from bad to worse. Obviously, even before the Taliban took over, things were not all that good. I've been doing humanitarian work in Afghanistan for about 21 years now. And, it's always, every time I go back there, it's difficult for me to kind of fathom how some people actually survive. It's really, really difficult. Even right now, winter's coming, and, I used to see sometimes, kids coming out of a tent in the middle of winter, and I'm like, how do they even sleep through that night? So the situation is very, very difficult as it stands right now. Obviously, the ironic thing today is that, at least for now, it seems like the international world is doing more damage to Afghanistan than the Taliban are doing. That's something you don't really want to hear, but that's the truth. And, you know, you can't even get, for example, you know, I have two organizations that I work with, and, you know, we help a lot of orphans, a lot of widows, and we can't even get money there. So it's really difficult for us to do our job. I have a clinic there. We have computer labs there. I can't even pay the employees. So that's not, you know, something that the Taliban are restricting us. It is really the international world where all the money is frozen. So unfortunately, I'm not on the ground, but I talk to obviously folks who are there, and it's almost like, you know, the pause button has been hit, and people are just in a state of confusion. They really don't know what to do, and then obviously people wanting to leave, you know, that's adding also to the confusion. So, and you know, we've been grateful. I mean, I have a big family here, actually. Someone asked me, you know, how many Afghans are in Columbus, and I told them, well, about 150 of them are my family members. So, and we've, you know, as you mentioned, I've come here when I was 10 years old. I mean, you know, very welcoming. I mean, that you know, I can still kind of think back and visualize the welcome we had. Even at that time, there weren't that many Afghans here. There weren't really many people from different nationalities here, but still, the Columbus community, you know, the way they welcomed us and brought our family in, I mean, it's just amazing. You know, we stayed actually with an elderly couple for a week until my brother was able to get us an apartment, and I still remember how I mean, it's just like she was my own grandmother. I mean, just amazing treatment that she gave us. So, you know, there are family members, some of my family members have been able to get out. I mean, we actually have a few members currently in Doha and in Abu Dhabi, you know, going through process. So there are some of our family members that are able to come out, and obviously, you know, there are many more in the queue. But my, you know, main concern, obviously, is trying to help the people who are there, trying to find ways where I can get money there, where I can continue to provide, you know. We sponsor, between the two organizations, about 900 orphans that basically depend on, every month, on the food that we give them. They really have nothing else. And even, you know, the families that they live with, you know, need that to continue and being able to at least have something to eat.
That's really interesting. And do you feel like the U.S. government handled the evacuation process in a sensible and efficient enough way?
Oh. Wow, okay. No, I mean, obviously, I think the answer is clear, but I'm just trying to figure out how to answer it. Yeah, I mean, everything, you know, from this whole, actually, this goes back to the last two and a half years of them, you know, sitting down and talking with the Taliban, kind of excluding the Afghan government. I mean, I used to tell people, you know, when I prayed at night, when these negotiations started, my prayer was that there be some joint government, even though I didn't like the previous government and I don't like the Taliban. But I was hoping, just like the Democrats and the Republicans, they don't like each other, but eventually they find ways to work. So I was hoping in my mind that, you know, if maybe there's something that is you know, some joint government, they'll able to maybe, you know, have some functioning government, because obviously the old guard, they at least knew how to work with the Western governments, and these guys coming in. So, you know, I don't think they handle it right. I think, you know, it was really poorly timed. I mean, again, you are the superpower of the world. You had so much resources. You also had so much other NATO allies who were there, you know. So it's really, I don't know if, I don't think, you know, I'm an electrical engineering and a planner, so we plan for the grid. So I don't really think they really planned anything, you know, and unfortunately, you know, from you know, the situation and the resources the U.S. has, I would have hoped, at least they should tell me we didn't have a plan. If they said we had a plan, then that's really bad. So I think it was handled really, really poorly. And but you know, we have to move on, and we have to now work with what we have.
Right. And I want to talk a little more about the status of the Afghan evacuees. And I say evacuees and not refugees because technically they don't have refugee status. So instead, they came here through a rarely used program called humanitarian parole that allows people in actual ordinary circumstances to come to the US without a visa. And I think it's important to know that everyone who is coming here needs to go through rigorous security and medical screening, including receiving their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine before heading to their assigned location. And for the next question, I would love to hear from all of you because you all have different roles in this. Is there anything more that the federal government, the state, and the city can do to better support Afghan parolees and your work?
Yes. Starting with the federal government, the Afghan Adjustment Act is very important so that those who came with parole can get lawful status here. Otherwise, all of those people will have to apply for asylum, which is incredibly backlogged, or have to renew that status every year. So that's of profound importance. So if you have an opportunity to talk to your elected official, the Afghan Adjustment Act is something that would help tremendously. On the local level, we talked about housing. I mean, that's critically important, getting people getting those apartment doors open. So that's been very welcomed. The state is talking about helping with rental assistance as well. So things are starting to line up. We certainly have many employers that are eager to be connected to parolees because of the labor shortage, and so we're in a good place in terms of the job market, so I'm optimistic there.
And we will definitely welcome some kind of a legal fund created specifically for this population, because we know that we will need to do a lot of work with legal documentation. It's adjustment of status, it's possibly asylum application, it's possibly application for special immigrant visas, and both of our organizations have legal immigration services. But at this point, we really would struggle with capacity to add to the workload that we already have. And definitely would like local legal community, legal immigration community, attorneys, immigration services to reach out to us and maybe offer some pro bono work. We would welcome any partnership to help us with this issue for sure.
I'm glad Nadia brought that up, because I think one of the main obstacles to people becoming settled is peace of mind related to their family members. In the notes that we're getting from the bases, there's very little information, but we are getting a lot of wife and minor children still in Kabul. Someone else is abroad. So everyone has questions about their family members, and we need to carefully analyze their individual situation to figure out how, and if there's an answer. I think that's what's been most frustrating is, I've been doing this a long time, but I don't feel confident in my answers. How can we get someone out of Kabul? I don't know. That's a complex question. Should we file humanitarian parole applications for people still in Afghanistan? I don't know.
Nicole.
And beyond basic, very uncomplicated legal services, we do not dabble in that. But we do know that people are coming to our doors and asking these same questions. So yes, and we kind of lean into our community. We are open to working with anybody who can help these families, get some answers and get on that road to, a permanent residency here. And then, of course, housing. I can't emphasize enough. I don't know what the answers are. It's not even a matter anymore of paying for housing. I say the case that comes to me that just needs a rent check, I don't care if it's 4 months worth of rent, is the easiest case on my desk. It's finding these places, and not substandard housing either. We do a lot of landlord mediation, a ton of landlord mediation. We talk a lot with our clients about landlord-tenant. Of course, legal aid is a phenomenal partner in that. But yeah, housing is a real crunch for everyone, and we're feeling that pinch.
And I definitely would add to that, we are resettling big families. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people in a family. We don't build enough, period, but we definitely don't build enough apartments, 3-bedroom apartments, 4-bedroom apartments. We definitely would love to talk to smaller landlords who have houses, so that we can place our new arrivals in houses and they have enough space, they have backyard, they have, so they're not in a crowded situation. We often have to look for 2 apartments that are next to each other, so that we can put a family of 10. It's very challenging. So we definitely need everybody's help.
And I'm sorry, before I let you speak, Nicole, I have a follow-up question. I know that your organization gets a lot of its funding from private groups, but I'm sure you know that a lot of similar community organizations that serve immigrants and refugees in Columbus have been struggling with funding cuts. And for a lot of them, their situation is pretty similar to yours. A lean team has to handle hundreds of cases every year. Do you feel like local social service groups have been getting enough government support to carry out the kind of work they do?
I think we're very fortunate here in Central Ohio, at least within the city of Columbus seems to be, and Franklin County as well, seems to be very open to looking at different ways to support social service agencies. I can't speak for everyone. I can tell you that this is not a normal period of time, right? So we're coming off of COVID, where many of us were some people had to shut their doors. We chose to stay open and absorb some operating costs. I can tell you that I am beyond humbled and forever grateful every single day that I can keep a family stable for the donor support, the personal donor support that we have within our Muslim community. It means and it speaks a lot that somebody trusts us to distribute what is a religious obligation for them, our religious obligatory charity. They're trusting my organization to vet these cases and to make sure that we're doing due diligence. And we take that very seriously. But I also know that many social service agencies are totally reliant less on donor support and on grant funding and that sort of thing. And we do also receive good supports via grants as well. Is there ever going to be enough money for a perfect world? No. Would I love to do a lot more? Yes. And I think every director of a social service agency would say the same thing. But I can tell you that both Franklin County and the city of Columbus, I think they do listen. And I think they are relatively supportive of what social services means for our community across the wide spectrum, not just for immigrants and refugees, but for a vast variety of social needs that are out there.
Thank you. And Norgo, now it's your turn. I know you came from Afghanistan about 3 decades ago, and obviously things have changed a lot in the past 35 years. But can you share with us a little bit what it was like when you first came here? Was there any assistance or support that you wish you had, and you hope that people who are coming here today are going to get?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, obviously my experience and our family's experience was a little bit unique because we had some family members here even at that time. Actually, my uncle came here in the 60s and he studied actually in Wisconsin, and then he came here to Ohio State University. So we were in a little bit of a different situation, that we had someone to get us the support and get us started. Obviously my parents, they did not speak the language, so, that was a little bit of a challenge where, as getting homework help or getting assistance, with school and all that, they weren't able to do that. But the good thing was we actually, my brother rented an apartment that was close to one of the oldest mosques here in Columbus, which is the Omar Mosque. And so we were able to kind of get some tutoring and mentoring from there, where our parents could not provide that. So I think, there are a few things that, someone coming into a new situation needs. Obviously for the kids, you need some kind of a mentoring, some kind of homework help, which I know Muslim Family Services, they provide. So I think that's one of the key things for the kids, because for us, we can adapt easily. I mean, like I said, we pick up the language easily. Obviously, it's a new culture, but still, for kids, things are easy, but they need that direction when it comes to school, and the parents need help in registering their kids. So that is something that is critical. And then for the adults, it's a little bit of a challenge, obviously, knowing my father and the difficulty that he had, But the main thing, obviously, is, as you had asked the question earlier about the government, assisting or making things easier. So the first thing is, if there's any way that we could make the refugees feel more of a sense of I guess that they don't have to worry about their status, that, that's really the biggest, worry they have. Am I going to be able to stay here? Do I have to file something else? And then obviously family member back home. So that is, one of the key thing to making things a little bit more comfortable. And then job. Once they are able to find work and able to provide for their family, because one thing I know about Afghans, and they're very proud, they want to be able to provide for their family, they want to work, but obviously coming into a new situation, a new environment, it's at times very difficult. So obviously these are great organizations, and we've, I have 150 family members, and I've told Angie, anytime you guys need help, anything that you need, we can provide that support, and we are, basically a fabric of Columbus. I don't consider, my son, he's sitting here, he's actually at Ohio State University, so all of us, have many generations and are currently, in our third generations here, so we've loved it, and this is our home.
That's great. And I'm sure that there are also some native-born residents here who are wondering, who want to know how, the fact that we're starting to get more families from abroad again is going to impact your lives. And Columbus has always had a sizable and diverse immigrant refugee community. Can you tell us a little bit about, in what ways have new Americans changed, transformed, or contributed to the city life here? Anyone?
Well, we're younger. We work, we start businesses, and in 2015, actually, our Chris and us together, in a partnership with the City of Columbus, released a report, a study on impact of refugees in Central Ohio, and this is exactly what we found. We found that people are as educated as native-born. We found that refugee population is younger, have more years to work, and we start businesses 2 times at the rate of somebody who was born here in the United States. So we have very driven populations, we have very entrepreneurial populations, we have people who want to succeed for themselves and for their children. And I think this is not new. This is what made this country unique and continued to drive innovation. New people, new immigrants, refugees come into this country with this drive. And we want to contribute, we want to give back. I myself came as a refugee 28 years ago, and the story of my family, the story of success. And I want to make sure that we talk about the successes as well as the needs that people have when they come, so that we can give that hand up, so that in a couple of years we can contribute back to our communities, because we do, big way.
Thank you for that. And now we'll move to questions from our live stream and in-person audience. It's CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions. And Jane is curating questions from the live stream audience. And for our in-house audience, please join Jane at the microphone. And please keep your questions brief and to the point. Jane, what is our first question?
Well, thank you very much. Anyone who has a question, just come up and we'll do live stream and in-audience questions. I have a couple of questions that are very similar, so I'm going to combine them. Jennifer Parsons and Nathan Young both have questions Jennifer's question is, if we want to give money or household products to help furnishing housing these families, is there a consolidated fund to give to, or should we donate to individual organizations? And where's the best place to donate actual household things and or furniture, dishes, clothing? And Nathan's question is very similar. Can the average folk host Afghan families for a short-term stay, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, et cetera, or until more long-term accommodations can be found?
Yes to both. We welcome new hosts, and we would love to develop relationship with both communities and congregations and individuals. We cannot do this work alone. Both Chris and us together provide services well beyond first 90 days. We have many different services, but even that not enough to meet all the needs. We can't do it alone, even with all our partners. We need all of you. So we welcome that. Also donations, I think the best way is to friend us on social media. We have Facebook pages, Twitter, Instagram, and others. Reach out to us. Go ahead.
On our website, we created a landing page for how to help Afghans in particular, and it outlines different ways, whether it's a direct cash donation where you could specify, intended for Afghans, making welcome kits, signing up to be part of a welcome team. We do have welcome teams go through a training process, and then match people with their, if you want to be a mentor to a new Afghan child. If you'd like to help teach English, that's something else that can happen. So there are lots of ways listed on our website.
And our list usually goes out through social media. We always have an office that can outfit a basic kitchen or home. We have people coming out of homeless shelter, not just newly arriving, families. So we always have sort of some stuff there for staging. We want to make sure that if a family is in need of something, we do winter coats, we do winter blankets. Everything that goes in and out of our office is free, whether it's our classes, whether it's our services, whether it's winter coats and boots for your kids. There is never a charge. So anything that is donated to us is then given to those in need. Absolutely free. And right now we are actively doing food support for new arrivals, simply because there is a significant lag in getting those benefits on board. So we are delivering food, and while we do have adequate supply, what's important is we're delivering what I guess we would call ethnically appropriate and useful items that often can't be found in other very well-meaning food pantries, including the type of meat, the halal meat that is a requirement. So we actually do provide that, and if you were at all interested in how we stock our food pantry, I don't think I've posted it recently, but you can always hit me up on our Facebook page or our web page, and I can get information to you on what that food and what those items look like.
And Norgo, how can people contribute to your organizations?
So we have two organizations that I work with. Obviously, the one I'm currently concentrating on is Hidayah Institute. So we have our webpage. You can donate there. There's different options you can donate towards, whether you want to donate towards the clinic, towards orphan sponsorship. So there are different, services that we provide that you can donate. It's called Hidayah Institute.
Thank you. Our first in-person question.
Hi, I'm Bill Lafayette. I'm an economist. I own Regionomics. And you touched briefly on finding a job, and that's something that I've always been very interested and curious about. What are the big challenges? What are the big successes of folks trying to find work in Columbus? And do you connect them with organizations like Jobs Ohio and the employment or the entrepreneurship institutes?
So one of the biggest challenges is underemployment, and we fully expect we'll see many Afghans who have skills, who have educational background, and in the early days, it's really important to set sort of a short, medium, and long-term goal in terms of jobs. Short term, it may be necessary to take that first job, but medium and long term, we really want to work with people to get back to their chosen field. Sometimes that takes time. It depends on circumstances. We had an Iraqi surgeon that we resettled who came and was a case manager for us. He wasn't married and didn't have kids, so he was able to study, and he's now a practicing surgeon again, but that took time. So that will be a challenge. Transportation to jobs is a challenge. We don't have the kind of infrastructure. Maybe we will with new things going on in Washington, but we certainly have seen employers more willing to even provide transportation, so that's a wonderful new development as well.
Yes, and one of the recent challenges that we're seeing is that, especially for Afghans arrivals, it is on those military bases while they go through the process and applications that they apply for their Social Security cards. And there is a significant delay. We meet people at the airport, we sell them, and we're still waiting for weeks and weeks for Social Security cards. They have the employment cards, but they don't have their Social Security cards yet. So that could delay employment. But people are ready to work. Both organizations have very high rate of placing people into employment. And now that I kind of have a stage, I want to ask employers to look beyond the position that a refugee is in right now and recognize a talent that might be there, like it happened in our family. When my husband started working second day after arrival, and his employer recognized his talents and promoted him very quickly to other position, and the company benefited from that. So don't just look at people in the position they are in. Talk to them and ask questions. Try to learn more because there are skills and talents beyond that particular position.
We have two questions. Again, I'm going to combine. Karen Timms, do most of the refugees speak Dari? How many are fluent in English? And the second piece of that is there a particular neighborhood that the Afghans are being settled into, or is it pretty much broad across the city? So two questions.
So far, the ones that we've resettled more speak Pashto than Dari, but there are a significant number that speak Dari as well. The northwest side of Columbus is where the existent population mostly lives, at least those more recently arrived, recently meaning 2014 and more recent. So that's where we've been looking for housing in particular, so that they can be closer to community members and family.
Thank you. And our next in-person question.
Yeah, first of all, greeting and welcome to member of leaders and all audience. My name is Qais, and I am one of refugees from Afghanistan. And I am civil engineer. I work with U.S. Army as a civil engineer. Now I am here. I'm very thankful for two organizations that they help Afghan people, especially us together, that they help me and they accept me and they help me every day, especially my caseworker, Mr. Sande and Ms. Habi. I have one question. My family lived in Afghanistan, my wife and two children. If any way to help me and get my family.
This is what we hope for. Because usually when we resettle refugees, we immediately help them to file family unification based on their refugee status. Our Congress needs to act so that people can adjust their parole status to a refugee status, and then we can definitely help.
Mr. Dada, I believe I'm a friend of your uncle.
And I wanted to find out personally if I could offer the sort of services as being a guest house. I'm a single retiree and a female but based household. I'm in the OSU area. And so someone who wanted to further their education, I could offer a guest house for an extended period of time. And I'm just down the street from a junior high school now. So
Which uncle do you know?
I know John Habib.
Yes, so he's the Habib John Dada. He's the first one who.
Well, when you mentioned he'd gone to Wisconsin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was there.
I
for-
also got my undergraduate degree from Wisconsin.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, if we can get the information, I mean, if you're willing to, house anyone for some time, yeah, we'll definitely get your information afterwards. Thank you.
I imagine there's going to be a line at the stage afterwards. Is there currently, Denise asks, is there currently an Office of New Americans Initiative, and what is the agency's role?
There is an office at the state level, State Office of Opportunities for New Americans. And we work with that office and partner with them. They have a website with a lot of resources for jobs, for entrepreneurship, linking people to state resources.
Peggy Kitty asks, in regard to housing, has there been any collaboration with Columbus Apartment Association and its membership?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. Actually, we've just heard as Columbus Council member Remy sponsored the new legislature. What he also did, he partnered with Columbus Apartment Association and realtors to make sure that they are part of the conversation, and he asked them to waive the application fee, to accept background check that all the refugees already had, and we hope to develop relationship and work with them in the future.
Have time for one more audience question.
Okay. Hi, I'm Kara Harasaki. I'm a physician at Nationwide Children's Hospital. And I wondered if you could detail the difference between the parolee and the refugee status, and what your opinion is on why the Afghan evacuees have been given parolee status instead of the refugee status that seems like it would benefit them so much more.
So the biggest distinction, refugee processing is all done abroad. And that typically takes several years. It can take a decade. It takes a long time overseas. In this situation, because of the emergency, people were literally, as you saw, scooped up and brought to the US, and then their processing was completed here. So parole is this very unusual, almost never used. I mean, I've used it a handful of times over a number of years, and that's typically for some afterborn child trying to get in. So using it like this was a really unique situation. So it's technically a temporary status. So that's the reason we're talking about the need for something permanent, so that the evacuees can have some stability, and because uncertainty is one of the biggest challenges they face right now, in terms of mental health and everything else. So parole status was given once they arrived, once they Customs and Border Patrol had the authority to provide parole status.
And usually, humanitarian parole status doesn't allow people to access public benefits. With this particular group, there were some adjustments made, so we were very relieved to know that evacuees from Afghanistan can access public benefits. Usually, humanitarian parole status doesn't allow that.
Thank you so much. I wish we had more time, but we don't. So we'll turn it back to Doug for concluding remarks.
Well, I hope you found today's forum intriguing and fascinating. Thank you all for joining us today. Please join us next Wednesday as CMC presents Now in Session, Behind the Curtains of Ohio's Supreme Court, with an extraordinary panel featuring 4 justices of the state's High Court. Thank you to our online virtual seat patrons and to the Columbus Dispatch for supporting today's forum. Thank you to today's sponsor, the United Way of Central Ohio, and today's partner, the Columbus Council on World Affairs. Thank you to the Emergency Response Fund of the Columbus Foundation for presenting our live stream in partnership with the Columbus Dispatch. If we could have a hand for all of our sponsors once again. And a special appreciation for today's speakers, Norgal Dada, Nicole Ghazi, Nadia Kazvan, Angela Plummer, and our host, Yinlin Chung. And thank you to all of you for joining us. We could not do it without you. I do want to acknowledge that tomorrow is Veterans Day, so on behalf of CMC, thank you to anybody who has served our country. And we look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at the Columbus Metropolitan Club presents another community conversation. Have a great day.